Yep. Okay.
Okay.
Ready to start?
Yep.
Okay, I can hear you, Debbie, typing. So I don't know if we start, if we'll still be able to hear that.
I am not typing. Someone else is.
Oh, someone's typing.
You're live, Allison.
Okay. All right. I call to order this special meeting of the Governing Board for the Scottsdale Unified School District. It is it is Friday, September, I hope I have the right date, 18th, 2020, and the time is 11:31 p.m. a.m. All rise, and Vice President Beckman will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Vice President. We will now have a roll call. The members of the SUSD Governing Board are attending via an online platform, or we may participate by telephonic communication. I believe everybody is online. So we'll start with a verbal roll call. Jan Michael Greenberg.
Here.
Sandy Kravitz.
Here.
Barbara Perlberg.
Here.
Patty Beckman.
Here.
And Allison Beckham here. All 5 Governing Board members are present, and we have a quorum. Do I have any changes to the agenda? With no changes, I make a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Do we have a second?
Second.
Vice President Beckman seconds. I'll do an individual roll call. Jan Michael Greenberg.
Aye.
Sandy Kravitz.
Aye.
Barbara Perlberg.
Aye.
Vice President Beckman.
Aye.
And Allison Beckham, aye. The motion carries 5-0. We called this special meeting for action item A, approval of a purchase of cameras for classroom streaming. Dr. Menzel, would you like to introduce our presenters?
Yes, thank you, President Beckham, Vice President Beckman, and members of the Governing Board. And I appreciate your availability on such short notice. Today we have Dr. Kim Guerin and our Director of Technology, Debbie Spalding, providing information with respect to the specific requests that we're bringing forward today. And I'll turn it over to Dr. Guerin to start the conversation.
Good afternoon, President Beckham, Governing Board members, Dr. Menzel, and our virtual guests. We are here today so we can present and learn and understand the current plan for Debbie Spalding's department to bring cameras to the classroom to help us stream for our natural hybrid program in some classrooms. Debbie?
Thank you. President Beckham, members of the board, Dr. Menzel, and virtual guests, thank you for your willingness to participate in this last-minute meeting. We really appreciate your time. I wanted to just talk a little bit about streaming from the classroom. The reason that we need live streaming is that we will be able to provide options for our teachers to live stream for both the full return students and our EDL Extend students at the very same time. The cameras that we're going to implement are ceiling mounted. The on-site students won't be on the camera. It would just be the teacher and the boards in the room. And then it's also integrated with the audio enhancement so that both the students in the classroom can hear the teacher well, and so can the teachers, the students that are at home. The district investment, as you've all seen in your presentation, is we already purchased one set of cameras so that we could get started right away. Hopefully we'll have some cameras to be able to start installs at the middle of next week. So we've ordered 95 cameras and cables for $85,809. And then we're still going to place, as long as you approve it, another order for another 705 cameras and the cables plus installing of all the units. So our goal would be to install up to 800 cameras at the end. And so the price for the other cameras plus the install is $821,598.30. I also want to show you a short video that is, hold on, one of our teachers. So first I want to thank Geraldine Coates. She's one of our teachers from Laguna, and Ed Milford, who yesterday we installed a camera in her room, and last night Ed showed her how to use it and they made a video for me. So here we go.
Hi, my name is Geraldine Coates, and I'm a third grade teacher at Laguna Elementary. I'm going to do a demonstration on some of the different angles for the PTZ camera. Preset 1 is the wide angle of the front of the classroom, as you can see where I am at right now. This is where I can do a read aloud or just have a discussion with my students. Preset 2 is the whiteboard at the front of the classroom, where I can actually do lessons and write on the board. Preset 3 where I am at my teacher's desk using the dot cam, doing a lesson with my students. Preset 4 is the angle where I would be at the front table doing different demonstrations with my students, such as science experiments, as you can see here. Preset 5 is an angle where it would be the map at the front of the classroom. And what's great about this is I can actually zoom in if I wanted to do a geography lesson, and I can also move it up and down. Preset 6 is me at the calendar. This is where I like to actually talk about different school events, early release, holidays with my students. Preset 7 is the angle of the door. Preset 8 would be a shot here of the schedule at the backboard. This is where I always like to talk about the different schedule for the day. And so this is a great area where I would also like to have my students see this. Preset 9 here is where I would be back at the front of the classroom, and this is where I would actually do another type of activity with my students. And so sometimes I always like to do different classroom jobs every week with them, and also doing a raffle with my students. I hope you enjoyed learning about some of the different angles of the PTZ camera. Bye.
So I did want to point out one thing before I open it up for questions, is I wanted to point out that the teacher is wearing a mask in the video, and with the audio enhancement, you can hear her really clearly. So I thought that that was a huge win. So does anyone have any questions or comments?
Just one moment, just one moment. Okay, I had to unmute. Vice President, thank you very much, Debbie, and Ms. Coates. Vice President Beckman, you have some questions?
I do. First of all, thank you. I know you guys are jumping through hoops to kind of get this technology in place so that we can be ready for our students. 800 cameras, how long is it going to take to install them? We have kids coming to campus on Monday, and where are we rolling these out? I mean, how did we have 1,500 classrooms, we have 800 cameras. How are we deciding where they go at first?
Okay, great question. So far I have gathered information from the K-5 principals, special ed, and K-5 gifted is all that I've charted. I know I have more info in my email right now, but so far we've had 111 requests for cameras. We will prioritize by starting with the kindergarten, first and second grades for our installs, and then go to 3-5 and so on and so forth. But we'll have the full list before so that we're not leaving people out. It is by choice, 100% by choice. Some teachers will choose to have a camera that they're streaming, and some will choose not to. And so that's how we're preparing, is we're going to start with the first kids that are here. We want them to get the cameras as soon as possible.
And so given that it's Friday and Monday, kids are, how long did you say that you think we can get most of these up and going? Like how long and train the teachers on how to use it, or?
Well, that truthfully, there's some unknown to that. It's not 100% firm yet, but we should receive equipment on Tuesday. So we'll start installing on Wednesday. Each classroom will take about 2 hours to install. We're working with the principals to provide some flexibility for us to be in some of those K2 rooms during the day, like maybe they'll switch to some empty rooms. We're working on coming up with plans on that. But we're going to just install as many as we can, as fast as we can. But we first have to do one school, which Desert Canyon Elementary asked for quite a few per grade level because of their Mandarin program. So we're going to start there so we can get some really solid installs and make sure that we've ironed out a lot of the bugs of, make the wire go here and things like that.
2 more questions.
Mm-hmm.
When they use the camera, are the lessons going to be recorded so that people can access them later on, meaning they're archived? So say that we have a child that has COVID and can't even sit up to watch the lesson. They're sleeping all day, they don't feel well. Is the content going to be recorded so that it can be accessed later on?
As long as the teacher records it, yes. The cameras do not record anything by themselves. They're not connected to our network. They're only connected to the teacher machine.
That is the plan, is to record the classroom to provide flexibility as well.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. Then the last question is, I know we're focusing on K-5 right now. I see this as being a tool going into the future because we don't know what's going to be happening with COVID-19 going forward. One would hope that we're going to open and numbers are going to stay positive and we're going to be just back in our classroom. But, this is a great tool to have should we need it in the future. And I would hope, and I hope you can speak today that we're planning ahead with our middle school and our high school classes. Are we talking to those teachers now and the principals and finding out what teachers would like this and placing orders so that we're not on Tuesday after Monday when high school and middle school start installing cameras? Are we being proactive?
We are. So, and Debbie, please jump in. Dr. Sakos and I met with the secondary committee for natural hybrid yesterday, both middle school and high school, and spent a lot of time with stakeholders, with teachers, parents, support staff, administrators, principals, and we're building a few options, and we will define them and land on some options next week. But we understand that cameras can be a big part of it. And if you can imagine how popular they became as a problem-solving solution for a school like Desert Canyon that has Mandarin, that makes it difficult to do both or partner with another school for certain content, it's a great solution to some of our challenges. So in anticipation of that, Debbie is ordering additional cameras because we believe it will be part of the solution, but we're also being careful not to mandate it, just to be one of the choices for teachers.
Can I add to that real quick, is that I also did meet with all the principal groups over the last 2 days. So all the principals are aware, and I showed them a little video clip, well, to some of them, and so they're aware of the technology. And many are very, very interested, and I'm getting lots of questions from teachers. They're interested and excited. They've heard when we put a couple cameras in because we had to do a pilot, of course. And as soon as we did that, more and more teachers start asking for them.
Okay, thank you.
Vice President Beckman, are you finished with questions at this time?
Yeah, I have a few more, but I'm going to open it up for the other board members for a bit.
All right, thank you. Board Member Greenberg.
So, first of all, I agree. Thank you for this, and it is very cool technology. Where does, when we say that the plan is that we will record these, is that a mandate for teachers who do choose to record and do choose to stream? Is that a mandate that they record their sessions?
It will depend on how the site implements the plan. So I do not believe it will be mandatory to record, just as it is not mandatory to live stream. It is an option. What we do need to make sure is that students that are at home have access to instruction and have access to the teacher. And that's happening in many different ways to creatively problem solve, having one teacher meet the needs of multiple students. So there are different ways to ensure students have access. That is one tool in our toolbox that seems to be very popular. We're being very careful getting feedback from teachers, making sure teachers have choices. They all have different teaching styles and methods and levels of interaction in their classroom, depending on how hands-on classrooms are. So we're trying to meet all those unique needs.
And are there privacy concerns or any legal issues with streaming this, or is it done as we've been doing it, where it goes through Zoom or Microsoft Teams, preferably, or however it is currently being streamed?
It would be using the same streaming platforms that we're already using. And then one thing about the cameras that are going to be in the classroom, the kids in the classroom will not be on those cameras. I don't know if you noticed from the angle pointing, the camera's in the ceiling, so it's going over their heads straight towards where the teacher would be located. And then with the presets, real quick, is those presets get to be set by the teacher. We're not going to set the presets and say you have to be here, here, and here. It can be any 9 places in the room that the teacher chooses. One teacher that we worked with, she even made it zoom down onto a desk, and it was as clear as a document camera.
And for the interaction between the teacher and the students who are watching it via stream, what are the expectations there, and how is that accomplished? Can the teacher see the students? Can the teacher call on the students? How does that work?
The teacher will see the students if they're in front of their computer. We're also looking at some options to maybe provide some Surface Go devices that a teacher could carry around the room with them to be able to see their team screen and see what the kids are doing on the screen and be able to quickly mute someone possibly. So that's how they would interact. And then they'll also hear those students over the audio enhancement.
The other, I just
sorry.
want to add a little to that. Thank you. So sorry. So the audio is simply amazing. And I think that's what really, it was when Debbie told me that she could hook it up to our current audio enhancement system. That's when I got really excited, because we all have tried to navigate these platforms. We've been in meetings where there's people in the room and also people virtual, and the audio and the feedback, it's just the biggest problem. And the students need to hear their teacher. So that was so exciting. The other piece is a teacher doesn't necessarily need to interact. We can live stream or record the lesson, but then have office hours later to give individualized attention to the students at home. Because it's just going to be, depending on the grade level, depending on the subject matter, depending on the number of students in the classroom, that might be too cumbersome. And what we don't want is we don't want the students at home not feeling heard, not having engagement with their teacher. So another way to manage that is they get to watch the teacher teach, and then later they have time with the other students that are at home learning on EDL Extend, and can ask questions and engage and do some cooperative activities that the kids in person got to do just in a different way. Because if you can imagine trying to have the kindergartners call out on the audio while you have kindergartners in front of you, could be difficult. But maybe not. I've seen some things that I never thought were possible the last few months.
So there is a possibility then that, depending on the workload or student body that a specific teacher is working with, that for the EDL students, they would largely be they'd be active participants, but they wouldn't be. It would be one directional in a sense, that any activity that they're doing on their end is not really necessarily heard or felt by the other students who are in the classroom until later at some, during class one-on-one instruction or something, some office hours.
And I think probably teachers are going to try a little bit of both and see what works best. Every day we're learning something new. Every day we're finding new tools. And we're starting with K2, so we're dipping our toe in, and we're going to learn from each situation. And Debbie's done a great job with her team going into classrooms right now this summer, teachers teaching EDL and having them try out different cameras, and they tell us this works, this doesn't, and that's why we landed on this one. So we will continue to modify and adjust because we've never done this before.
So going back to the contract itself, are we purchasing, is it a straightforward purchase of 800 cameras, or are we just going to purchase as many as we think we need as we continue to survey staff and see what their feelings are? Because it is quite a lot of money, and since we don't necessarily know what will happen, or if this is a temporary feature, is this an expenditure that we see long-term use for?
Well, a couple of things on that is, first, technology, any type of technology purchase is very difficult to make at this time. It's very hard to source laptops, hard to source cameras. I ordered some tripods over a month ago. We still haven't received them. It's really hard to get technology equipment. We found a source of 800 of these cameras, and so that was why we wanted to buy them all up front. It will enable us that if we don't use them all, then we'll have stock for replacement when things break also.
Debbie's department has been proactive, and that was why we were one of the districts that had enough laptops when we started fourth quarter. So I think this is a proactive move. But to answer your question about when this is over, and who knows when that will be, we're not going to unlearn all of these new skills, and we're really moving our practice forward. And there's always times when students are absent, or when a student didn't understand a lecture and like to watch it again. If I was a parent and I could watch my son's Algebra 3-4 lecture in the evening with him when he has questions with his homework, and we can help go through it together, that would be such a great tool for us, pandemic or not. So I see this being a feature that's going to take us into the future for intervention for students that are absent. And also we're looking at ways that teachers can share instruction, share lectures, learn from each other, really open up the classrooms from behind the doors in our virtual world.
Yeah, I mean, as at university, this was a very common tool. I mean, it's what we had. We could watch it online, and even during non-COVID times, and then stream it for revision purposes. But I am perhaps maybe a little concerned if that's the direction we're taking generally, because I don't know if that's really the staff expectation. You know, if this is something, because it certainly exists at the university level, and I've always thought it probably made sense at the high school level, but at the elementary and middle school levels, I don't know if staff, or even at the high school levels, if this is something that staff view as a great opportunity for them to do this while COVID is ongoing, to help keep their class sizes low and serve and do everything they can to help their students given what's going on, versus something that they want to continue recording themselves and there's an expectation that they will be recorded and put online for years to come. So I'm a little worried about that, and I agree. Debbie has been extremely proactive. Without Debbie, we'd be in a completely different whole other mess. So I'm very happy with the IT department's work on this and everything. So it's by no means about that. I mean, what I guess Dr. Menzel can maybe speak to this. What are the numbers coming in at for this EDL versus in person? These finalization numbers. Are we talking about a small number of students online who? I mean, I guess my question is spending this $1 million the best way to address and help these students and support teachers with the varying class sizes in the EDL in person, and why do you think that is?
So I appreciate the question, and it varies by level, and we don't have the middle school, high school information yet in terms of that breakdown. So we just have K-5. One surprise to us was the number of teachers who actually wanted to have the cameras because they wanted to keep their students, and so this is the solution to that problem. When I think about where we are and all of the uncertainties, I think we have to be planning at a minimum for the balance of the school year, not just the calendar year, but through the rest of the school year. This technology enables us to do the kinds of things that I think are necessary to have continuity in learning, provide teachers the tools they need to be able to support our students. We've said that we're going to give them choice, so it may be that there are different modes of delivery, but absent this technology, as you know, if you're trying to use a camera on your laptop or some other device, it doesn't always have the same level of quality. The ability to be able to pan, tilt, and get different angles in the classroom is actually an advantage for a teacher that you don't have in quite the same way if I have to pick up my laptop and turn it around and hope that the camera caught the angle that we wanted. So when I'm thinking about the investment, I don't think this, to Dr. Guerin's point, I don't think it's an investment for the short term. I think there are a lot of different ways that the technology could be used in the long term. As I understand it, the number of cameras we're proposing to purchase represents about half of the classrooms we have. And so we're not proposing to implement it in every classroom, but we are proposing to secure enough so that if we're in this situation where we're doing a combination of in-person and online for the balance of the school year, we have technology to be able to facilitate that.
And do we have the infrastructure in place, the broadband, to stream 800 classrooms? I know we said we couldn't have all 1,500, but I mean, is there? I know, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, to give another shout out to Debbie, that we are actually updating our internet this weekend. So thank you for that as well. Good shout out there. But will we have that capability without really much disruption to viewers?
Debbie, would you like to talk about that?
Yes, we should have adequate bandwidth to do this. It would be rough if all teachers were streaming at the same time and all kids were also trying to search on their devices at the same time. In the classrooms, when this teacher is streaming, their kids in the classroom are not going to be watching the stream. They're going to be watching the teacher. So that takes a lot of the computers out of the mix during the live instruction. And then I did want to, just because I was thinking about this a minute ago, mention we have quite a few teachers, especially math teachers from what I've seen, that teach a flipped classroom model now, and they have been for several years. And this actually will give them the ability to do a better flipped classroom because they don't have to just stand in front of their computer. You can use this for live streaming, but you could also use it for recording, and you can walk around the room, you can go to your different boards, and in the elementaries, the different centers, and it gives a lot of flexibility to the teacher even for the future. So I don't think this is we're going to use them now and never use them again. I think that that's one tiny example, and our teachers are going to come up with thousands of examples that we've never thought of yet because they didn't have the cameras.
All right, thank you very much. I really appreciate this. Again, this is something we had at university, and it's a fantastic tool for revision. But I do have a few concerns here, and I just want to make sure this expenditure is certainly worth it and will resolve problems as well as help us in the future. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Board Member Kravitz, you had a question. Oh, Sandy.
I'm unmuting. Hold on. Thank you. A couple of my questions were already answered, so during that exchange, so I just have a few. Well, I think this is a worthwhile tool that's going to help our students. I think it could be embraced, much like our audio enhancement systems have been embraced by our teachers. Are all 800, I know we're getting 111, if we prove this by Tuesday, are the remainder available to us as well, or are they on back order, or what's the situation with the others? And I believe this question also has been answered. Are we ordering 800 because they're available and out there, so let's grab them, or are we ordering 800 because we've somewhat surveyed our sites to see how many we'll need? How did we land on that number is what I'm trying to.
Well, I'll start with the ordering. We have 95 on order right now. The 111 is how many is requested. But we have 95 on order right now that hopefully will be here Tuesday. The other 705, thank you. Those will place an order as soon as we end this meeting, if you approve it. And then I can get a commitment for exactly when we can get them. They most likely have them available because I know they had a shipment that came in this week to the company. And so I know that they had them. But if someone else ordered them, they can't hold an order for me until I actually have a purchase order. But it's very likely.
But so how did we land on the number, the 800 number?
Well, we originally thought that we were going to order 500 because after having talked to the elementary people, it seemed like first off, once again, the demand for them was higher than I expected. And so just with the few people that we've reached so far, we already had 111. So we felt that we were going to surpass the 500. And we didn't want to be limited by the number of cameras. So that's why we decided to go to 800, because that's roughly half of our classrooms. I hope that we don't have too much more demand than that. And that if we do, that we can still get the cameras. Unfortunately,
I guess my concern
we can't get answers from all the teachers until we have the plan as to exactly how middle school and high school is going to work.
Right.
We do anticipate that secondary would have more requests than elementary.
Okay, I mean, that's just a concern. I don't know how many, so I don't know, where this number was drawn from. And while I think it's a good idea to have some extra at the warehouse, there's extra, and then there's an abundance. And we know that technology improves each year. So we don't want to have old technology, installing old technology, because that's what we have in our warehouse if there's something new and improved that's out there. So that was a concern of mine.
And Dr. Sackos just shared, excuse me, that Debbie did demonstrate the cameras at middle school and high school breakouts, and they were very well received.
Okay,
There
great.
was also some feedback from the principals on
No,
that.
I think it's a great tool, for our teachers to record themselves. I mean, it can help them also with their lessons as well. I mean, like our national board certified teachers have to video themselves anyway. So, it's a good tool for teaching anyway, and mostly for our students. And again, I guess the question that I had about, our system being able to support all this technology, because I've been around long enough where we've ordered, whether PTOs thought they were doing a great thing by ordering technology for their schools, or actually the district itself ordering technology, and then not being able to integrate it into our building. Sorry, I have a good memory for that. So I just want some reassurances that, that when we go to use this technology, our teachers will be able to use it. There won't be anything that's slowed down as a result of, a classroom down the hall using it at the same time.
So you most likely recall that last year we approved upgrading all of the fiber in all the campuses.
Right.
And then also upgrading the connections from our warehouse, where our central, what we call network operations center is, out to the schools. So the WAN, which we call the connection out to our schools, that is upgraded to 10 gig. The schools, we started with our biggest schools, the high schools and the middle schools, and all the high schools have already gotten their fiber replacement. We're halfway through the middle schools. And so we've captured all the biggest schools that would have the most problems, because there's so many more teachers there. And so while we're going to continue with our fiber installs throughout this school year, we don't have them all done, but we got the biggest schools, so we should be good. The smaller schools, they have, network equipment that's only 2 years old. They have good throughput. They have decent Wi-Fi. They should be okay, but they'll be even better once we get that fiber replaced.
Okay, and I don't mean to be hung up on the number that we're ordering, but again, I want to make sure if we are providing technology for our teachers that they actually use it. So I hope that we get some accurate feedback, I guess, from our principals, from that they've gotten from their teachers, that they will use this, because I don't want technology in a classroom that isn't being used, and I also don't want it sitting in a warehouse, and then it's not even being used in our school. So those are my two concerns.
Well, Sandy, I think that you know it pretty well now after these last 3 years, and you know that in IT, when we start a project, we take it to fruition, and we will do that with these, just like.
Oh, that's not
Well, it's in the warehouse.
My comment isn't a reflection on you. It's just a reflection and just in general, where we provide something and then it doesn't get used for a variety of reasons, not because of the technology department.
My biggest worry would be that we don't have enough cameras, and that more people will want them than we can get cameras.
Well, I would agree.
That's my bigger
would be
worry.
a great, I don't want to say great problem, because I would want, if it is going to be used, I would want to be able to provide them for our teachers.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Just one moment. I'm trying to unmute. Okay, got unmuted. I'm going to be going in order of who requested to be had a question. So Vice President Beckman, you're next. And you can see it in the chat.
Okay, so you may have sent this out, but this was a quick meeting, so if I didn't see it, I apologize. How are we paying for this? Like, where is it coming out of?
This is coming out of our capital budget for IT.
Okay.
We already had, one of the things that we did last year is we allocated about $2 million to starting to upgrade the smart boards and such that are in the classrooms now. So we're really kind of shifting our priority on that. We'll still have some money remaining to start doing our classroom technology refresh, but just not as much.
Okay.
So the good news is we had a budget for that we could shift for
Well,
this.
thank you for giving us that information and looking forward, or, you know, we could be in a world of hurt. With regard to this vendor's contract, is there any warranties on these things? Are there updates that come with them? Is the vendor providing the install? Are we doing the install? Can you give me some insight on those?
So with warranty, it's just the standard warranty of the equipment, which is, I believe, a 1-year warranty. With the install, we are not installing through CDW. We're installing through another vendor called ENS Enterprise Network Solutions. So their cabling team is going to help us with the install of them. In
Okay.
fact, we're
That
meeting
leads
with them to show them what we did already today.
Okay, that just leads me to the next question. For some of our rebuilds, like we're doing Kiva right now, and we've got Hohokam, and, you know, are these easily moved and they're not damaged if they're moved? And we're going to go back to the vendor and we're going to additionally pay for those cameras to be taken down and reinstalled somewhere? Have we thought through that?
When we rebuild a school, my team goes in and captures all the equipment that we can reuse. So for instance, at Hohokam, we took all the old switches. We did take all the old phones out, but we're not reusing them. But we take every piece of equipment that we can possibly reuse, including the smart boards, so that when a smart board, because our smart boards are 12 years old now, when a smart board breaks, we take one from our stock that we have from the rebuilds and we move it over. Same with the audio enhancement systems. We pull those out of the ceilings and we reuse them in other schools as things break. And so we'll continue that process, but these have a power cable and a USB cable. That's all that's going to be running through the ceiling on that. And then we're also running an auxiliary cable, just like a sound cable, from our current amplifier over to the teacher docking station. So super easy install, super easy to take out and reuse.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, Board Member Greenberg, you had another question. You were next in line.
Thank you, and thank you, Patty, for asking about how the specific priority that we're shifting for the budget, because that was one of my questions, so I appreciate that. For the videos that we are capturing and recording, where will those be hosted, and how will they be accessed by students?
So currently our teachers record quite a few of their lessons and they either post them in their Google Classroom. If they're using Teams, they're right in the Teams meeting that you can just go right back to it. But they can also be downloaded and stored anywhere the teacher wishes to store them, and they tend to store them in their Google Classroom for the most part.
Thank you, Debbie. That's a really good point, that there's been a ton of lesson recording currently in enhanced distance learning. The camera feature just enhances what the teacher is recording so that they can actually, instead of just sit in front of a computer, get up and do what they do in their classroom.
So, and I assume, so Google Classroom can only be accessed via the student's sign in and credentials. It can't be accessed by the public. Okay, thank you.
All right. Next is Barbara Proberg.
Okay. Thank you. I think most of my questions have been answered, but first off, as I know our parents kind of have already decided on EDL extended or in person, I kind of wondering, and maybe I'm jumping the gun here, but bringing in this technology and this opportunity for them to, you know, see their teachers during lessons, do you think that might shift some EDL extended requests at this point? Or do you not anticipate that?
So it might, but remember we said that this was optional for teachers. So in terms of how we're going to deliver it, at the elementary level, we had, as has been noted previously, more teachers volunteer to do this than we anticipated, which is why we have a higher number that we're recommending we order. Middle school and high school, we think it's probably more likely part of the built-in solution, but we don't know the selection of families at this juncture. And so moving forward in this direction makes that conversation a little bit different, but we still have made a statement that teachers will have a choice. And unless that changes somehow, I think that you're not likely to see a big shift in terms of at least what's happening with EDL Extend at the elementary.
Okay, appreciate that. And I know initially when we talked about cameras in the classroom, it was stated, that it wasn't an easy solution. There was some discussion about how effective it would be as especially the younger classrooms, teachers walking around the classroom and how that would work, and there were concerns. Have we seen this technology used maybe somewhere else in the country with K through 2, young kids in classrooms, actually live, and how does it look? I mean, how effective, how positive is it?
I have not seen it anywhere yet, but if you want to see, well, I have a video that I can share with you outside of this meeting because I didn't get signatures. That has a teacher that's teaching with his kids remote, and he's in the classroom teaching using this. So I can show you that, but I can't.
But he doesn't, he obviously wouldn't have a live classroom.
He doesn't have the live classroom yet, but his son was in there.
But what we do see in that video, I think it's a really important question. Again, it's not a panacea. So when you're observing and you're not in the classroom, it doesn't mean that you're fully focused and attending to what's happening in the classroom. Kids can still easily get distracted. They can get up and move to grab something, come back to the camera. I mean, the things that we experience in enhanced distance learning now, when teachers are trying to manage, 25 or 30 kids in a classroom, that's still true for the 4 or 5 that are on the camera. That doesn't change. This makes it possible to extend the learning. It's not a perfect solution. It's one that just allows that connection to remain between the classroom teacher and the students who are not able to be in person.
Okay.
I
Barbara,
appreciate that. Thank you.
Debbie, I have a question. Half of my screen is gone. Is that, I don't know if that's I'll live with it. Okay. I don't know what happened. It just all of a sudden popped up. Just so you know, you will have to use the chat because I cannot see the lower half, anybody who's in the lower half. Patty Beckman.
Okay, as we wrap kind of up this conversation, which I think we are because I'm not seeing much more chat, I think it's an opportune time to thank our taxpayers yet again, because the equity differences between districts in this state is not lost on me. And Debbie, I really appreciate you being proactive, but throughout this pandemic, if we did not have the passing of that M&O override or the passing of the capital override, et cetera, we and our community partners, for instance, like the Charos that helped with technology in the past, we would not be in the position that we are in now to serve our Scottsdale students. So I want to thank our taxpayers for passing those things. I want to thank you, Debbie, for really helping and being on the ball, getting us ahead, and our nutrition services, et cetera, because we are really kind of ahead of the curve on a lot of these things. So again, thanks.
Okay. I do have a few questions, and several of them have been asked. One of the questions goes to who will be using them, and I know what I've heard is that we haven't figured out for middle school or high school. How are you going to determine if we have you allocated a portion of these to go to? Well, you must have, because we don't have 800 teachers in elementary school. I assume that.
Right.
But let's say every single elementary teacher wants one, and that's not what we're anticipating, but they do. Will they be receiving them, or will we be doing just an allotment to each campus? Like setting it, only 75% of the teachers get them so that we will have some for middle school or high school. How is that going to be worked out amongst the 800?
President Beckham, we already have the requested amount for elementary school. And is that 111, Debbie? So the remainder would be for middle school and high school.
Okay, so I'm assuming there's more than 111 teachers in elementary school. So from a parent and a student standpoint, if I am in a second grade class and I have 3 classes in my school, 2 of the teachers are doing camera, the teacher I get is not, yet I feel that, especially if I have EDL students in there, I am not getting the same education, instruction that my peers are in the other 2 classes. How are we going to address those type of concerns?
So there are different solutions that we're looking at depending on it, and it really, and Dr. Hagegot can jump in as well, but many of these solutions were driven by the number of students who chose in-person learning and the number of students that chose EDL Extend. So for example, if a principal and teachers were able to look at the number of students staying home and were able to find a first grade teacher and cohort those students together, I might be a first grade teacher teaching first grade students from 3 different schools in my learning community. So then when they're getting EDL Extend synchronously with a first grade teacher with other students that have chosen to remain at home from a couple of different elementary schools. If I'm at a school like Desert Canyon, where I need to find a way to continue to have Mandarin immersion, I don't have a Mandarin immersion partner school to have first graders all paired up for the EDL Extend. So I'm going to choose instead potentially to live stream my classroom so they still have access to the signature program. So the camera is a tool and a solution, but we led with, let's look at how we can gather up students that are staying at home and put them with a highly qualified teacher, first choice from their homeschool or from their learning community, and they would have that synchronous EDL experience. If that can't happen because we can't provide that signature program or the numbers don't support it, we don't have another teacher to pull to make another class, then another option was the live streaming. So it's not going to look the same in every situation, but our commitment is a highly qualified SUSD teacher with synchronous instruction for our students at home.
And we feel that that is in alignment with what was talked about in the beginning when we gave our parents choice of whether they did EDL or in classroom.
Yes.
Okay. And I think maybe we need a clarification there because we are hearing from parents saying, and maybe this was the confusion, that they felt that when they chose EDL, the reason that they chose it is that they would be able to stay with their homeschool and their teacher. So maybe we need to reiterate what our original commitment was and then how, if at all, that has changed.
President Beckham, we were so careful in the survey, in the commitment form, there were 2 choices. And we were very specific on the language that you might not have your teacher, you may not have a teacher from your home school. And that was actually for both selections in the commitment form to make the natural hybrid work. That was one thing that we gave up.
And I'm sorry, I'm talking about the original commitment, not the survey we took last week.
So on the original equipment, I appreciate the question. Remember, we did not have EDL Extend as a part of our return to learn plan. We had EDL full return and we had Scottsdale Online. What happened after the plan was approved is that we learned about the complexity related to our special programs, dual language immersion, IB, and all the rest. That's when we made the commitment, and the language said that for those who are temporarily unable to return as a result of health concerns, or those who might have to be out for a period of time due to COVID illness themselves or a family member, we would find a way to extend enhanced distance learning. What we didn't commit to, that I think some people heard, is that we would just keep doing EDL the way we were doing it. And that is, if we go back to the language that was included there, it said, for those who temporarily need to continue in enhanced distance learning, or for those who have to be out for quarantine purposes, we would find a strategy. We never said what that would look like. We committed to being able to put something in place to extend the learning that way for those families so that they didn't have to give up their specialty program.
All right, thank you for that clarification.
Can
And
I mention one more thing?
yes, please.
I did want to mention that Dr. Guerin and I met with our specialty area leads. The other day, we met with special ed and gifted and EL, and we are definitely, we've gotten lists from them already on who we need to help for having the cameras in the classroom. So we're kind of prioritizing on some of those special programs.
All right, thank you. I think, Dr. Guerin, you had mentioned a couple of items, but I was wondering if you could just kind of give the list. You've looked at, as I understand it, you've looked at, this wasn't the only camera equipment you looked at various camera equipment. And in the proposal, it didn't mention the justification for why you chose this particular equipment. So if you could just give us the 3 or 4 reasons that this one rose above the others.
So it was definitely, and Debbie can speak more to this than I can, but teacher feedback, teacher trial and error, using the equipment with enhanced distance learning. Now, students weren't in front of them, but certainly students were at home. Observing those lessons, getting feedback from the teacher, and also price point. So we wanted to find something that was not the highest price on the market, but that certainly had what we wanted. We wanted to be able to hear, the students needed to hear the teacher, and the students in the classroom, we did not want their learning disrupted by feedback and all of that. So audio was huge. We wanted privacy. We didn't want students streamed. We wanted access to particular areas in the classroom. And when I was a classroom teacher, my whiteboard was, and of course this was a long time ago because I'm ancient, but my whiteboard was huge, and that calendar area was important to me. And I had a science table that was important, so that teachers can pick 9 areas that they can demonstrate and interact is an incredible feature that right now they don't have. We also wanted to make sure that we weren't just plugging all the students in. If you have to sit in front of your computer and teach like that, and all the kids have to sit at the desks, then the magic of what happens in the classroom, the interaction, is taken away. And teachers said, we don't want that. If we're coming back, we want to teach how we teach. And so this camera offered that because it still had the privacy for the students in the classroom. So really, Debbie did a great job of trying it out, and thank you to the teachers that were the ones that tried it. There was one camera, somebody said, no way, this is awful, and I can't remember which one it was, but those were the reasons.
Okay, thank you. Debbie, did you want to add anything to that?
I don't think there's anything I can add.
Okay, all right, great. And I did have a question on the cost and what were we forgoing in our budget, because what was budgeted in there, and it sounded like you said it was new whiteboards that were budgeted. So that means we're just going to be delaying the purchase of those particular whiteboards as we go forward. Is that correct?
Right.
Is that what I heard?
Well, yes, it was smart boards is what
Smart boards
are in the
I picked up
classroom now.
whiteboards from Kim there.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we're going to delay putting in new interactive flat panels.
Okay.
And we'll be able to do about half the classes that we were hoping.
Okay.
Yes, President Beckham, they didn't have smart boards when I was in the classroom.
I know.
Thank you.
That you had mentioned that whiteboard. So you talked about when we receive them and install them. So you'll let us know, well, if something happens when you call to make the order and they're not available, you'll be letting us know if there's going to be a delay in that. You mentioned that warranty was brought up. So it's a 1-year warranty. Is there a maintenance agreement? So that is this company, if we do have some problems with cameras, who comes in to maintain them, and if it's not already in a maintenance agreement, because I saw your head kind of go no, do we have some funds set aside so that we can get them fixed? Or is it the type of equipment, if it's either a lemon or if it breaks, you just replace it.
It's kind of like a Chromebook. There's very few parts that you can replace. And so my team will maintain them like they maintain all the projectors in all the rooms and all the smart boards in all the rooms. We didn't even ask about a maintenance agreement because there's so much. It's a huge cost for any type of maintenance agreement. And so unless it's high level equipment that's going to keep our network running, we usually don't do maintenance agreements.
Okay, and we feel that we're trained to be able to fix them. All right. And that goes into the rolling out of the cameras. What training are we providing, and do we have a training budget that we have set up, or is this the type of thing that, you kind of learn as you go once you learn how to turn it on, off, and do the 10 different cameras?
Well, as you know, this is one of those things that's happening so very quickly. But one of the tech coaches got wind of what we were doing and has already contacted me to say, how can I help? How can I develop the training? So the tech coaches who are in Cheryl's group, they're already ready to help. So they'll do the training.
Okay. Okay. Are we looking at doing a Moodle or something? Because we are looking at rolling these out kind of all at once.
I'm sure that they'll do multiple methods for training. We'll make handouts. They typically do live stream lessons nowadays, and then they also record them, and we post them. So we'll post it on, the IT website and things like that for the teachers.
All right, thank you. So that brings up, I just want to confirm to make sure I'm understanding. The cameras, the camera will be separate and is separate from the recording. Right now, we can record our classrooms, and that can continue whether you have a camera or not. Is that correct? And what we do know is that once we add the camera, it doesn't inhibit that recording. It somehow, though, does go through it and uses the enhanced audio or something. There's a technical side to that if you want to hook those two up together. So how many of our classrooms are recording, and are we using that just as an optional tool as well?
I truthfully don't know how many of our teachers are recording, but I'm pretty sure it's the majority of them. Go ahead, Kim.
Yeah, it's an optional tool. We're not mandating the use. Just when we add new technology to a classroom, we encourage, we train, we set goals to move instruction along, but we don't typically mandate use of a device. We just explore and provide that support to enhance instruction. So Debbie's right. It has been it's so easy to record and save for students that possibly had a conflict at home, and it provides flexibility for families, but it's not something we mandated through our expectations agreement.
Oh, all right. Thank you very much. Now, I believe we had another question from Board Member Kravitz.
Oh, yeah, just a quick one. To clarify why we're using the capital budget for this expenditure, did we get some funds? Is it the CARES fund that is providing us money for pandemic expenditures? Did we get some money for that, and why are we using, and I don't know how much that is. Excuse me, the light just went off in here again. How much money we're getting for the pandemic funds? So why are we not using that versus capital? Have we already allocated all of our pandemic funds? I was just curious.
So we do have funds that we're getting from the state or feds for the pandemic. We're getting from CARES Act just over $2 million. We already have that allocated out.
Okay.
We also have funds that we're getting for the enrollment stabilization grant. We're kind of in the boat of let's put it through capital for right now. And if down the road we realize that we have the ability to put that over to another one of those grants. There's also a FEMA grant that we're looking at to see if that's possible. So the thought was, let's put it in capital now, and if we have the availability to then push that over to one of the other grants, then we'll do that at that time. But for now, to get it going, let's put it through the capital and then see where we land as we progress through the year and the funding that we have.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have one last question that maybe I don't know why I thought of it. The question's already been asked, but my thought was, it's on the bandwidth. We get the 800 set up. Some of our teachers see what other teachers are doing. They love it. They want cameras. We figure out we've got the budget. They're working great. Would we have the bandwidth to be able to provide every teacher? And it's not every teacher, because maybe some of our electives or specials, it doesn't really make sense to do it, but maybe it does. Would we have that bandwidth or would we not? And if we don't, what will it take for us to understand what we do need?
So what I would like to do is to go through this implementation and we can watch our bandwidth so that we can see if there's times during the day where we're maxing out, or at school, certain sites that we're maxing out. So my biggest worry, of course, would be Desert Mountain. We have so many kids and so many teachers at that school, and Chaparral is actually larger, I believe. Those would be my two bigger worries. But like I said, we're fully upgraded at those two sites. And so I think we're good, but we need to, we did some calculations and we're pretty darn sure we can accommodate the 800 cameras, but let's see what it really does to our network as we bring those on, so we can calculate what will happen to add more.
Okay.
So,
All right.
I can't guarantee it, but I'm pretty sure. I think so.
Okay. Thank you. Board Member Greenberg.
Thank you. Sorry, I don't mean to keep dragging this on. I have two questions. The first was we had discussed the office hours point, so that teachers could work with their EDL students and give them kind of that one-on-one instruction that they're missing out on to some degree by not being in person. I had raised the question or idea about whether we should be at the elementary level, if we can do so legally, lowering or doing some form of early release to give teachers that time. Where is the planning and prep time in this and the office hours time supposed to come out of for these teachers?
So each schedule varies campus to campus. The teachers will still have prep time. And Dr. Hagegot and Dr. Menzel and I are just discussing creative ways to try to provide additional support to teachers. One thing we're doing is we're recruiting some of the coaches out of teaching and learning to take sections of EDL and to support in that way to lighten the load in the classroom. So it is all hands on deck, and we are building this up rather quickly, and we're continuing to look at innovative ways. Our teachers and principals are working so very hard to meet the needs of their students, and we're doing everything we can to support.
What does typical planning time look like for a K-5 or even middle high school teacher?
I'm going to defer to Dr. Hagegot to talk about that.
Hi, everyone. I've been closely listening. Again, when you talk about, I want to make sure that I understand your question. Usually the time itself is about 40 minutes for teachers to plan and prepare. I've been working very closely with our EDL, our principals, to address EDL needs, because we want to make sure that our teachers have their prep, especially if they're doing more than just the in-person. In addition to that, we're also trying to figure out what are some ways that we are able to share with the parents that we have time for teachers to do those visits without taking away their prep. It's not an easy task. Like Dr. Guerin said, we are looking to see what that would look like. I was very pleased to see the idea of bringing a half-day type of model. The challenge that I'm finding with that is if we do have those teachers, because it's not every teacher, it's only some teachers that are doing the double responsibility of in-person and EDL. If we release our kids at an earlier time, what are we doing with our students? And again, a challenge that we would look through. And because it's not all of the teachers, then we would end up having some staggered dismissals that would also impact transportation. So we're not dismissing the idea, but we're trying to see how would that work. And it's still something that Dr. Menzel, Dr. Guerin, and I are looking into.
So, and maybe Dr. Menzel can speak to this. What we did the surveys for the K-5, we identified classrooms that were pretty full, for lack of a better word or description, and then we notified parents, correct, that this class is more than 20. So what did that change much, or do we still have? Did much change after being given that notice?
I'll answer that. We're still allowing numbers to come in because in some cases the plan hadn't been flushed out. So principals were sharing as late as even yesterday. But I have to tell you that surprisingly, for my knowledge, not a lot has, because the teachers are doing such a phenomenal job that their parent wants to have the teacher, whether it be in an EDL or whether it be an in-person. And so what I have done in the past day and a half is go from site to site and see where the desks are set up, and actually with my measuring tape, because I have one of those too, I took the really big one, took the distance between the students, their chair to the next chair. I even pulled them back. And so we are seeing some classrooms that they are a little tighter, but they still have the compliance of between 3 and 5 feet in some cases. And so to answer your question, some of the parents are wanting to have their students with their teachers, so they are going to be a part of an in-person, but I don't have the exact numbers yet because some of those are still coming in, and the principals are adjusting and readjusting the sheets.
And we do need to tie this into our agenda, which is.
Well, no, and that's why,
which it
right.
does, because that's.
Right. That I guess that's my point. Is I'm the tie-in is we have, and I guess it's difficult to see because I don't know who's streaming and where EDL is going in this, but I mean, if we have teachers who have 20 or something students in their class, or even if they have 15 students in their class, but then another 10 or 15 on streaming, I just think, I appreciate that you guys are looking into it, but I really do think at a minimum, we have to find something of giving our teachers the ability to plan, not only plan and give them that downtime to do that, but also the time to hold these office hours that does not require them to stay on campus or stay working all the way through the night or something, because it just isn't an even spread. So, and it doesn't seem that there is a clear direction. It seems like this is very much, we're giving teachers the responsibility or option, if you will, for those that are doing this streaming and in-person teaching to figure it out on their own and see what works and what doesn't. But I'm just worried about the burnout here and the all of a sudden we start this and the schedule's not working. This is why we're phasing it in, just for the public's knowledge. This is why we're phasing it in, because things might not work and we have to play around with it. But if this really doesn't work wholesale, which would be, I don't think that will happen, but if there are more issues that come up, it's just something we should really keep on our radar here.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add that my ask to principals has been to keep whatever creative solution where it is within the school day and within the school hours, because we don't want teachers, in addition to everything that's going on, overextending themselves to outside of our professional day.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Vice President Beckman has a question.
Yeah, I didn't have one, and Jan, or Board Member Greenberg, you just kind of brought something up that I would think these cameras would alleviate some of the issues, meaning that when I was talking to some of the elementary school principals, for instance, if there were 3 teachers in a second grade classroom, sometimes there was some shifting that was going on with regard to they were moving one of those teachers to actually do the EDL and the other 2 were going to take the in-person. Does that make sense? So they were trying to get creative that way. And if we have cameras in the classroom, and this is my understanding, that this would allow those teachers to actually have, the kids that were on EDL live, so that that 3rd teacher then wouldn't be removed to do just the EDL piece. They could keep their in-person piece. Does that make sense? So I would think that would help bring those numbers, or not down necessarily, because the numbers are numbers, but not make them go up to have that extra shifting happen. Am I on target here?
Wouldn't that depend on if the teacher is streaming, if they have teachers that are willing to stream?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's,
So
Board Member Greenberg answered the question because, again, the goal was to be collaborative with teachers, and some teachers are more comfortable with live streaming than others.
Right.
So in some cases, yes, it would work just like you shared it, but in others, we would still need to do the teacher doing EDL and other teachers doing in person.
but it does help because now we've provided another tool for those teachers that are willing to do it. So if all 3 teachers in second grade were willing to do the cameras in the classroom, they could effectively keep those EDL students and their classroom, and we wouldn't be having to take one of those teachers and dedicate them to EDL. So those numbers would stay the same instead of that, those 2 teachers absorbing that 3rd teacher's in-person kid,
Yes,
right?
as long as they're comfortable live streaming, because we wanted to take that under consideration.
Yeah. Understandable. Okay.
And just acknowledge that for those that wanted to continue in EDL the way it's been currently configured, you need a dedicated teacher doing EDL the way we're having this board meeting. Those that are staying with their classroom teacher, that EDL experience will be different because you're participating remotely in a classroom where the instruction's taking place in person. So it's not the same experience. And again, it's all about trade-offs and being able to do what we can, which is why we've got a lot of options on the table. And we're doing the best that we can in this current environment to meet the needs of as many of our students as we can.
And I appreciate that. I just wanted to acknowledge that point that it doesn't necessarily reduce the class sizes that we had seen. And yes, it may not increase some, but it totally completely defends. And I think it was noted at the last meeting, we are perhaps the only district offering as many options, and maybe that's a good thing, maybe that's a bad thing. We're trying to accommodate everyone, and these cameras, and for the teachers who are picking it up, I appreciate it. I think it's I think it's going to be a tough job. I don't think anyone thinks it's going to be easy. And for the teachers who are not comfortable and are trying to figure out everything they can to separate the children and make it work, that's also a very tough job, and I commend that as well. Your efforts, all of our staff's efforts are definitely not going unnoticed. It's very hard work. I don't think I could ever do it. So, thank you guys. I really appreciate it.
Dr. Menzel, do you have any further comments that you would like to add before we move on to a motion, if there's no longer any more discussion about the board members?
I would just like to say thank you for making yourselves available on short notice. We generally prefer to have things in our regular schedule and bring it to you without having to have a special meeting. As you know, these are extraordinary times, and while we have been planning for ordering the cameras, the scope and scale shifted pretty quickly. So thank you for being available. And I also appreciate the very thoughtful questions, because I think it's really appropriate, particularly when we have something that's this short of a notice, but overall to be clear about the investment of taxpayer resources and being cognizant about how the tools of technology are being used to improve teaching and learning opportunities. So thank you for that.
That brought up one last question, and if it's already been answered, then it'll be quick anyway. If there's a delay in getting these cameras installed, and you do have a classroom teacher who is planning on using it, and that's why they've kept their EDL students, the EDL parents are wondering, how is that going? What model is going to be used until they get that camera installed?
I can share a little bit of what I observed yesterday during my visits. It wasn't with this technology, but one of our teachers was already setting it up just like we're doing right now, to where she's able to see her students, and I'll point towards that area where if I had students in front of me, I would be able to see them. And they have 2 screens where they're able to do their lessons and be in a position to work with their students in person and on the screen. And so that thought is already out there, because again, this is great that we're able to bring this technology to make things easier, but our teachers are amazing and they're very creative, and they are already using what's in front of them to provide that service. It may not be at the same level as what we're speaking right now. And so I think many that choose to use this technology will be very, very pleased.
All right, thank you, Dr. Hagegott. Debbie, do you have?
one more piece to that? Yes, thank you. Here's an example. We have a kindergarten teacher out at Desert Canyon Elementary that is going to be doing EDL and her class. And so what I'm going to be taking over to her after this meeting is I'm going to take her a Surface Go tablet and an audio cable so we can connect her main computer to her docking station, and then also to the auxiliary audio enhancement, so that we'll stream through that computer. And they'll give her Surface Go so she can walk around the classroom, because I haven't taught kindergarten, but I've been in a couple of kindergarten rooms, but I cannot imagine that you could teach a kindergarten class from behind a desk. So I've got to give her some mobility. So we'll make those adjustments as we need to.
All right, thank you. Does anybody else have anything to add? Please, as I mentioned, I've lost part of my screen, so just put it in the chat. So if I don't see anything in the chat, we'll move on to, okay.
Just really quickly, Debbie, for these videos that we're already, or the teaching that we're already recording, and for future ones we record, do we store, I mean, it sounds like we do. We have all the original copies of that just in case somebody takes one of these videos, because at the university level, you're really dealing with just students and the professor. Here, you know, there are many parties who might be involved in accessing these videos. And if somebody does something with one of them and posts it everywhere or tries to manipulate it in some way, do we have the originals that we can always refer back to?
That is an interesting question. We would have those videos for Teams, Meets. We will have them up for up to 30 days. And any other platform, unless the teacher downloads it and stores it, then I wouldn't have a copy of it from an IT perspective. So right, sometimes we have a copy and sometimes we don't, but we could definitely try to give some teachers some other options on how to store them, for instance, to their what we call our H drives, which is a user folder. We have plenty of storage space that people could definitely store their videos there, or in the Google Classrooms.
All right, we may just want to look into that just so that we have a record of all these interactions. All right, thank you, sorry.
Mm-hmm. Okay, anybody else? All right, then we'll move on. Do we have a motion to approve the purchase of cameras for classroom streaming, 800 cameras at approximately no more than $908,000?
So moved.
Board Member Kravitz moves. Do we have a second?
Second.
Vice President Beckman seconds. I'll have an individual roll call. Jan Michael Greenberg.
Aye.
Sandy Kravitz.
Aye.
Barbara Perlberg.
Aye.
Patty Beckman.
Aye.
And Allison Beckham, aye. Motion passes 5-0. I move to adjourn this special meeting. Do I have a second?
Second. Sandy
Board
Kravitz.
Member Kravitz. Before I do that, just in case, well, oh, go ahead. We'll have a roll call. Jan Michael Greenberg.
Aye.
Sandy Kravitz.
Aye.
Barbara Perlberg.
Aye.
Patty Beckman.
Aye.
Allison Beckham. Motion passes 5-0. I want to thank Dr. Guerin and Dr. Menzel and Debbie Spalding and her entire IT team, also the teachers and any other staff members that help with this proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you to all of them as well.
This special meeting of the governing board on September 18, 2020 is adjourned at 12:55 p.m. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Oh,
Alice.
my dog thought the door